do you want to, I think, I'll make intros on our end, and then I'll let you decide who you want to introduce on the LifeStance team, if that sounds good.
Sure, that sounds good. I think I can maybe give a high-level overview just for the sake of time, but go ahead first.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you all for being here this afternoon, and really excited to meet with everybody. We've got about an hour and a half together, and so what I'm going to do is just go through a high-level agenda of an introduction, introduce myself and my solution consultant. I'll do a quick overview of Five9, and then we'll jump into some of the processes here at Five9. And last but not least, we'll get into your demo, if that sounds great. My name is Nabila Lulo. I'm an enterprise sales director here at Five9, located in the Seattle, Washington area. And with me today, I have Mike Egley, who is my solutions consultant. Mike, did you want to go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mike Egley. I am a solutions consultant. What that really means is I've worked in the contact center space for about 23 years, and I've been everything from an agent to a supervisor and also consultant. These days, I work with organizations to understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, what your challenges are. As a part of that, I'm going to give a demonstration today of what Five9 does. One quick point, though, is that I hate putting people to sleep. So if that was your goal today, please don't stick around, because I'm going to try to ask some questions, and I would love it if you guys asked a lot of questions too. I mean, really, this is for you guys. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And before I turn it over to your team, Christy, I just want to say that I've been working with Christy and some of the folks from Fit Technologies since, I want to say, gosh, November of last year, in terms of just trying to determine if Five9 could be a good solution for LifeStance and what that would look like for you guys. So that's really why we're here today with the extended audience. Christy believed it would be beneficial for you to take a look at Five9. So as Mike mentioned, any questions you have, we want this to be an open conversation, so please feel free to chime in. With that being said, I'll turn it over to you, Christy, to introduce the folks on your end, and then I'll jump back in.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So I think I'll just sort of give a quick high-level overview of everybody who's on the call, just so we can spend the most of the time sort of getting into the meat of the demonstration.
Absolutely.
But we have Louise Stevens, who's the division president for our Northeast division, on the call. Many of the people who are on the call actually fall onto Louise's team. Ashley is another one of our division presidents from the Atlantic division, so she's interested in solutions for her division as well. I don't think she's joined just yet, but she may pop on here in a minute. And then primarily we have Anne, who oversees our New York and New Jersey states. And a lot of people from Anne's team, I think, primarily, that are looking for solutions for primarily intake in the New York area, but certainly to expand to other regions as well. And then we have Lindsay, who's a new member of our corporate team. We're super excited to have her. She is a project director working closely with Louise in the Northeast. And then we also have Toy Valentine, head of service design for our digital team. And she is listening in as well to sort of learn about the solution, interested in understanding how the solution can complement any solutions that our digital team is looking to build or provide in the future. And then, of course, we have several members of the Fit Technologies team who, for anybody who doesn't know, is our IT partner in New York and several areas of the Atlantic. I'm skimming is there anyone that I missed, or Anne, anything that you want to say specifically about anyone who's joining, or anything that you guys particularly are interested in?
No, we're just so excited, Christy. No, we're ready to get to it. Very excited.
Okay, sounds good. So I say we get to it.
Perfect. Okay, well, there's just a couple things that I think that are important about Five9 and just that I want to share with you. And I promise I will not bore you with PowerPoint today. But just a couple things, I've talked with Christy about what's important and, obviously having a full IVR functionality for your contact center, some better reporting capabilities, really enhancing that intake and patient experience. And then last but not least, having that Teams integration for your internal agents. Just a few things that, we're going to focus on today. A few things about Five9 that I wanted to point out. I know there's a lot on this slide, but I want to direct your attention to the upper right-hand corner. We have an 84 NPS score for implementation. And if anyone's not familiar with what an NPS score is, that is a Net Promoter Score. Those range anywhere from a -100 all the way to a +100. Five9 in the industry has the highest score. So something that we are very proud here about Five9 and want to share that with you as you're, deciding on a vendor. Trust and reliability, our trust site is updated regularly, and that is at a 99.993%. On the lower right-hand side, just some of the leading customers that use Five9 today. And my goal is that you're so delighted with our solution that you want to have your logo up here next year. So just a few things that I wanted to touch on that are important to our Five9 culture. So what really sets us apart is our technology, our ecosystem, and our services. And we're going to jump into that a little bit more. So our technology, we're going to walk through these components today in the demo, right? We're going to see the customer application. That's what it looks like when your customers your patients are calling in. Our pre-built integrations, that's around Microsoft Teams, some of our workflow engagement as well. And then last but not least, we're going to definitely see the administration part of that. What does it look like as a supervisor, our dashboards, reporting, and analytics? So lots to cover in the time, but just wanted to give you a quick snippet of what you can expect in this next hour and a half. Our services implementation. Going back to that 84 NPS score, this is really what sets us apart. So our services team is completely incentivized and motivated by how well they do and how happy you are as a customer. So as you move through your implementation with Five9, you will find that our services team is all in-house Five9 employees. We have a high-touch, white glove approach, and we are with you from initiation all the way to project closure. So really excited to be able to provide that for our customers. With that being said, I know just a quick run through of Five9, but wanted to touch on a few important areas. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him jump into the demo if that sounds okay to everybody.
Give me a moment. I don't use Teams that much, so I always have to look for where the button is to share. 1 second. All right, can you guys see my browser?
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Good, I figured it out. I hope I'd be at least that smart, otherwise this wouldn't be a very good demo. All right, so again, I introduced myself, Mike Egley. I'm gonna keep things high level today. If you guys want more sessions to kind of dive in deeper, that's great. But I want to leave plenty of time for questions and discussion, and you guys are welcome to challenge me. So what is Five9? So Five9 is a cloud-based contact center. Now, what does that mean? So one, we're cloud-based. That means there's no physical equipment that has to sit anywhere to enable you guys to have agents and as supervisors literally working from anywhere. I mean, we have global companies, we have US companies, etc. And especially because of COVID, we have so many organizations that have anywhere from 20 to 6,000 plus agents working concurrently to manage calls that are coming in. And that's a really beautiful vision to have for organizations, because if you think about it, now there's no equipment, it's all online, it's all in the cloud. And so all you need access to is to have access to a browser. And so just like you guys would, if you guys came to Five9 just like you guys would, to log into the queues for the day or be a supervisor and go to your dashboards. I do the same thing during my demonstrations. I log in just like you would, open up my browser. I go to login.five9.com. And then once I log in, I see all of these icons here. Now, these icons are presented to you based on your role. So, of course, for demonstrations, I'm an agent, I'm a supervisor, and I'm an administrator. So I get a few more options, right, than your traditional user would. But if I was an agent, I'd probably just see agent and training. If I was a supervisor, I'm going to have access to my supervisor dashboards. I'm going to have access to reporting. Some organizations want workforce management. I don't think I'm going to spend time on that today, but workforce management is where you can build agent schedules and you can track their adherence to those schedules. Like, did they take breaks around the right time that they were supposed to? And, and allow agents to swap shifts if they have sort of a real life event and, and try to find somebody else that can cover that shift for them, et cetera. So that's all workforce management. But that usually takes a lot of time to go through because people have a lot of questions around that, especially if it's a new concept for you. So we usually try to not overwhelm you in the first session with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the agent experience. But before I go there, there's one thing I do want to talk about. And one thing that's really important to Five9 is that everyone that comes to Five9 has a very, very easy transition from whatever they've been using in the past to whatever they're going to be using now. And we always talk about NPS scores, the Net Promoter Scores in our organization, to everybody that we work with, because we have the highest Net Promoter Score, and I don't say that as a salesy thing. It's just a culture of Five9 about ensuring that the transition to Five9, the implementation, the support afterwards, the training, everything is, we put so much effort into that to make it easy. And one of those things is beyond, beyond having, instructor-led training and getting all of that great training. One of the things that we did is we wanted to make sure that you will always have access, be you from an agent or a supervisor perspective, to be able to come in and self-manage training through Five9 University. Now, right now, before I've even clicked very much, you're probably thinking, oh, great, he's going to show us PDFs and I have to read through all these and all this stuff. No. So one really unique aspect of Five9 is we realize the fact that you may come back after, I don't know, 3 months and you don't remember how to go ahead and create an alert so that, let's say you're low staffed or calls are running a little long. You don't remember how to do that in the supervisor dashboard. Well, what we don't want you to do is to go read and try to poke through this gigantic PDF because your experience is going to be negative. So what we want to do is you want to make sure that you can come in and watch videos that are tailored.
We discuss how to create and manage alerts in
to the specific topics you want to do, right? And they specifically walk you through how to do certain things. And we found, based on the feedback from our customers, and we've been in business for over 20 years, the idea is to deliver content the way our customers want it. And so imagine being able to have this video up while I've got my supervisor over here, and then being able to walk through it and be like, wow, that's so easy. So it's little touches like that that make a really big difference when you decide to go to something that is going to manage all of that communication, right, with your patients and potential patients. So now to kind of bring it back, so I'm an agent, and as an agent, I want to be able to take calls for the day, right? It's my turn to log in. Maybe I'm working from home off my laptop, right? Maybe we're fast forwarding in the future and we're all able to work in places again, whatever it is. I would click on agent. And when I do that, it takes me to our agent. Now, there's a lot going on here, so no worries. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to kind of walk through what you see. Let's start off over here. Left-hand side, you see a bunch of icons: calls, voicemails, chats, email, social. So Five9, we're an omni-channel platform. Now, what omni-channel means is that we're a singular platform that can communicate across a whole bunch of different communications mediums, right? Today, companies, they want to talk over voice. They want to take in a chat from your website. They want to be able to manage email coming in, but more than just email into a mailbox that everyone kind of dives into and grabs, but they want to have structure to it. You want to make sure that the emails are routed to the most appropriate person. You want to make sure 3 people didn't grab the same email and all reply to it at the same time, right? And now, of course, the patient's experience is kind of weird because they just got 3 different answers with, or 3 different answers from 3 different people, right? So structuring emails, chat, social media, text messaging, it all comes into one platform. I know these are not all things you guys are looking at today, and that's fine. I at least spend 30 seconds talking about them because you never know where people are going to be. I work with a whole bunch of organizations in the healthcare space, and some of them are full breadth moving towards talking about things over text messages, and the next ones are like, we only touch voice here. But you never know where you're going to be out in a couple of years, so I at least touch on it. Now here in the middle, this is showing me the queues that I'm logged into in bold, and the queues that I'm not logged into, they're grayed out. It's because I can be in a queue, but my supervisor can keep me disabled in those queues for right now. Maybe because you're a team lead, maybe you're a backup and you're cross-trained to help answer different kinds of calls, whatever the scenario may be, those are options. And it's those kinds of options that are important within a platform like this because every organization's different. Every organization's unique, right? You have very particular ways that you want to handle your organization's calls and all the patients that are calling in. And so having choices in the way we adapt this to you is important. I also have the ability, and I've been given the ability to enable myself into a queue. You don't have to give people that, but you may find that you have certain people that need the ability to not handle the 90% of the calls coming in, but every once in a while, if you get really, really busy, it would be great if they could go ahead and add themselves to the queue directly. Just options. I'm also seeing right here how busy these queues are. Now, obviously, it's a demo platform, right? So they're not busy, but we will be sending live calls in here. You don't have to hear me talk for 90 minutes straight and not have anything happen. But I can see how many calls are on hold, and we include callback requests, sometimes called virtual hold, out of the box. We don't charge you for it or anything. That's you've probably had it happen before. You called an organization and they have long hold times, and it offers you the opportunity to keep your position in line, but you get to hang up, and then it calls you back when an agent's available. That's just something we do because we understand how important it is for patient and member services, because from their experience perspective, nobody wants to wait on hold for 20 minutes, right? So let's give it out of the box. So that's just kind of what you're seeing here. Now over here on the right and over here on the bottom, these are things that I don't know if they're particularly well relevant. We've had a talk before about call recordings, and I know there's always sensitive topics. Different organizations feel different about call recordings in the healthcare space. Obviously, we can provide it if at some point you guys want it. And then the next follow-up, typically when an organization wants to add call recording, is they want the ability to have supervisors have the ability to review the call recordings for training purposes. And so we give you that ability. We can even present that, which you see this box down here that can be turned on and off to the agent. So I'm seeing here that a supervisor told me that I had a really bad call, which is why I got a 43%. And I can actually read why they felt that way, and then they can assign me learning materials and all kinds of stuff. And again, I know it's not necessarily relevant right now, but again, you never know where you're going to be. So I at least touch on it real quick. And this is an example of what the agent might experience if we managed agent schedules this way, where I can not only see my agent schedule when I'm supposed to be working this week, but I can see that I didn't adhere to the schedule because I was supposed to take a break here, but I logged out here, I logged out here, I logged out here. So I had some extended breaks that I took that I probably wasn't supposed to. And then, of course, that's all rolled up to reporting and dashboards, and supervisors have the ability to do something about it, et cetera. All right, last thing before I send in a phone call so you guys can see what this would be like from an agent experience. Right here, this is break. right? This is, I'm ready to take calls. This is presence. So this is, what am I doing right now? Well, if I have some follow-up work to do, you could have it turn that on automatically. Maybe you give all of the folks on your team 2-3 minutes at the end of every call to automatically not get bombarded with another call. Or maybe they want to finish entering notes in Advanced MD, or maybe if I've got a break or a team meeting, I can go ahead and flip myself to that. But when I'm ready to take calls, I switch myself to ready, and now the system knows, hey, I've got an extra agent that can help manage all of these interactions that we have. Okay. So I want to go ahead and make an inbound call, and then we're going to have that agent answer it.
Thank you for calling Lifespan Health. How can I help you today?
My provider told me to call and ask about the outpatient therapy.
No problem. I can help. I'll get you to a representative so you can learn more about our individual and outpatient therapy services.
All right. Now, what did I do? Obviously, I enjoy playing with this stuff. So what I did is we front ends any patient experience, or any caller experience, with really just about anything that you can imagine. But in general, you kind of pick two paths, right? Some organizations want to call to go directly to a human being. That's great, no problem at all. Alternately, though, sometimes you want to have something up in front that lets them choose and get their call to the right place. The old days, you had button presses, right? We called them IVRs, and of course, we have a absolute, basic IVR that you're able to implement. So you want to keep things the way you have it. Fantastic. Nobody will argue with you. So you can have a prompt, and you can have publish all the numbers that you need to that go to those prompts, and then you can say, oh, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and they do, and it gets them directly to your agents. These days, a lot of organizations want to have something that provides more guidance in that process. We call that a virtual agent these days, just so you guys kind of know what that term is. And virtual agents are really intelligent these days, right? They actually use artificial intelligence, and they listen to what the person's saying, and then based on what they say, because we enable them to speak naturally about what they want, we route them to the right place. The same things are also now used, the virtual agents are now used to do all kinds of self-service tasks. Maybe they can pay their bill. Even if you normally like them to go to a person, maybe if they call in at 11 o'clock at night, then you can have a virtual agent have them, take their bill, or, take their payment information to pay a bill or whatever it is. Some organizations are even using it to schedule appointments or follow-up calls. So regardless, I'm not going to spend any more time on that. There's great opportunities for future discussions, but that's what you heard. So I expressed that I wanted to talk to somebody about outpatient therapy services. It routed me directly to a queue, and my agent got a screen pop. Now, I'm going to make it a little bit more basic, but I do want to explain one thing. So if you think about the call coming into a queue, it doesn't just go to the queue. There's a lot of choices that you can make if you want to in that millisecond, or a few seconds, or a few minutes before you get to an agent, once the caller makes a selection, right? It could be as basic as, I'm going to drop this call into a queue, or it could be as powerful as, well, first, I want to look up who the caller is in Advanced MD, and then say, okay, do we know them already? And if we know who the person is, right, maybe we make a decision based on that. I've worked a lot from hospitals to we talked about this with you guys before on a different call, but I worked recently with a suicide hotline, and their principal thing is that as the call comes in, they wanted to see if we've spoken to that person before, because the worst case scenario is that you're having long hold times in a suicide hotline. Like, that's the absolute worst thing, right, you can imagine. And so we want to make sure that, based on our knowledge, if we've spoken to them before, if we have experience with the patient, that we can even adjust their priority in the queue. And so we can bump them up, for example, or route them differently, or route them to a backup provider. All kinds of decisions can be made, right? So keep in mind that's an option. And that could be like, crazy science fiction crazy science fiction stuff to you guys, right? And you're like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. I don't want to do that right now. That's fine. But keep in mind that with any platform like Five9, that's a lot of times the intent in the long run is to how can we provide a better customer experience for the people coming in, and that's a great way to do it. Another one is, you'll have the ability to introduce skills-based routing. So we're here, I'm just a singular agent in this queue. You could have 50 agents, you could have 100 agents, you could have 600 agents in the queue. Do you want to keep it all flat, or do you want to be able to say, I have some agents that are more skilled, and because of that, I want to drive more calls their way? So that way our newest hires, they're getting calls, but maybe it's less. That way they can have sort of a slower ramp, right, as they develop their own skills and managing the calls coming in. And therefore I want to adjust skill levels. Regardless, in this case, the call came in the queue and my agent got a screen pop. And as you can see, the screen changed, right? So what's happening? Over here, traditionally, you work on a phone system, you have this phone sitting on your desk, right? And you're used to hitting a transfer button on there and doing different things on that phone. Well, everything's on the web, right? So I can put the caller on hold by clicking hold. I can transfer that call to someone else or an external, right, provider or whatever we have. Conference. You don't have to have this record button here, right? So we can ignore that. Just kind of turned on by default here in my demo environment. But all these buttons are available for me to use. Over here in the middle, I popped a script. And you guys don't even have to use script, but scripts are web-based, and we pull them in. We can pull in other data. You see all these highlightable fields and all this information we're bringing in. I could bring in information into a script from another system like AdvancedMD, or we're obviously aware of quite a bit too, right? We know what their phone number is. We hopefully know what their name is. You can include disclaimers here and text. You can make this whole thing feel different, right? The idea is to give the agent some guidance on the call, especially if you have to introduce different disclaimers and things like that. Sometimes it's nice just to have them here as a reminder. We're really all about arming the agent with as much information as possible, right? The more information they have, the more they're capable of providing, the right experience and a positive experience, right, to whoever's calling in that they're interacting with. So another way we do that is providing you a history of interactions with this individual. And this isn't just yours. This is across the organization. So imagine if the next time you get a call, you can see this person's called in 4 times today, and you can see the agents they talk to. And this can include emails, chats, whatever it is. So imagine seeing the history of interactions, because I can give you context, right? Or maybe it just gives me an insight to who the other person is that they talked to 5 minutes ago. That'd be great too, because then if I see that, hey, look, it's a different agent, why don't I go ahead and I'll message that other agent, and maybe I can talk to them real quick and say, hey, did you talk to X just a few minutes ago, right? And then start talking to them about things, right? Get some guidance on what to do. Information's everything. Now, first, I quickly switched away from it to went to the script because I didn't want to show even more things on the screen, right? But what you're seeing here is I just wanted to bring in an example of like our ability to pop a third-party platform, right? So if you think about, in the case that you guys use AdvancedMD, right, and you're keeping patient data and scheduling and payments and all these different things in that platform. We work with so many different platforms, right, and sometimes they're even homegrown applications that organizations have developed because they can't find something out there to do what they need to. Regardless, I believe it's 86% of our customer base is tied to a platform that does all those kinds of things, because what they want is they want on that inbound call, they want that platform to pop if we've ever talked to that person before. Maybe it pops to a new patient record. Maybe it pops to an existing patient if we're working with this individual already. It saves a few seconds. It adds more, adds a warmer experience to the person calling in. It has all the relevant details there already. And the other thing that we frequently do is, at the end of each call, most of our customers want not only that we popped it, but at the end of the call that we put data back into that platform. And of course, that's an option. You guys don't have to do that. But a lot of our customers do, because we're aware of the fact that you talked to that person and this agent did, and they called in at this time. So a lot of the organizations we work with want us to put that into the patient record, because then there's a list of activities, a list of interactions that we've had with them, not just from, a provider, having a session with them, but it's also, hey, they talked to us on the phone on this date, and then this date and this date, right? So it provides a complete historical view of how many times we've interacted with that patient. So those are all options, but that's the reason this popped up, is I want to give you a really brief view of that. So with that said, I've kind of walked through some basics. Last thing I want to do before I go ahead and hang up the call here, my first call, is I wanted to go touch on a couple of other little things that I haven't done yet. So the first one is, I just want to show you what a transfer box looks like. Not everybody transfers calls in every organization, but I'm going to assume you probably transfer. So transfer and conference, in case you use both, they look absolutely identical. They are a different button. We want to make it consistent and easy to use, right? So simple things. I can type in a person's name, and what's great is I can even see if they're even available, right? Like I can already tell if I wanted to transfer to Brad, Brad's out. So is that even useful, right? Did I transfer to him? I guess it's just going to go to his voicemail. Type in phone numbers, great. I can switch between a warm transfer, right, where I'll introduce the party I have on the phone to the other person I'm transferring to, or I can just cold or blind transfer, as some people call it. I can just send it right out. I can do a select contact, which opens up an address book. And this enables me to go ahead and see within Five9, for example, who's there, who's not available. Transfer directly to skills. I've got a lot of skills here. I've got 253 queues here, right? There's a large environment that I'm logged into right now, but I can pick different skills, right? So maybe they called into the wrong group. Simple, right? Just pick whatever you need to transfer to. We're also UC connected. What that means is that I can tie to other communications platforms. So imagine that you're using Microsoft Teams or Zoom or any of those platforms, and obviously we're on Teams today. So it's a perfect example where you've got folks all across the organization and you're using Teams, and you want to be able to have folks on Teams be able to IM and chat. But the thing is, these days, you may also want to be able to transfer the call that came into a queue and transfer it to a user that's on Teams Voice, right? So a fantastic way to do that is these UC groups that you're seeing here are actually Teams users. So I could go ahead and not only check to see if Christine's even there first, but then I could select Christine and then go ahead and transfer the call outs to Christine. So it doesn't matter if you're on Five9 or Teams. We tie into Teams to give you that ability. Now, I know that you guys take payments on calls. So because you take payments, that puts you guys in a unique spot, right? You don't just have to be HIPAA compliant, but and protect all that PHI and PII, but you also have to be PCI compliant because you're handling payments over the phone with your own agents. So an important piece about that is that there's varying degrees of comfort level that organizations have with how they manage payments. So we're, by the nature of what we do, we're completely HIPAA compliant, we're completely PCI compliant. But all that really means is that we have to encrypt everything that we do. Now, some organizations say that we're fine with that. We're going to stick with the strict standard of PCI and HIPAA, and everything's going to be encrypted, and we're good to go. But some organizations say, yeah, but I don't feel comfortable with the fact that our agents are still collecting payment details. And today, in today's world, it's tough because there's a lot of agents now that have become the risk for the organization, because when you're taking 100 payments a day, they're collecting the credit card numbers. Some of them are writing them down, taking them home, and committing credit card fraud. Sounds crazy, but it happens all the time. And organizations are constantly saying, that would never be me. We'll never have an employee that does it. And then next week you see them in the news. So it's up to you. We're completely PCI compliant, so you continue to manage payments directly over the phone. If you have a desire to crank it up a notch in terms of security, we have a number of solutions for how to address that. The most common one, though, if you think back to when I initially called in and I had this artificial intelligence voice, right, that picked up, and the virtual agent, asked me what I wanted to do today. And I said, well, I need some help with outpatient therapy, and it routed me in there. Well, that same engine could help me while on the call. Okay, follow me here for a second. You're on the call with the person, they want to pay a bill, and I can get assistance from that virtual agent to collect those payment details. But as an agent, I never hear it. Okay. So as an example, let's say that was something that you guys wanted to look at down the track. We call it Secure Pay. And as an agent, all I have to do is say, you know what? So now that we're going to collect payment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer you to our virtual agent. She's going to go ahead and collect these payment details. And then when you're done, it's going to bring you right back to me. Okay. So they click the button, and what we do with Secure Pay, this is just a demo. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially entering some kind of an invoice number, right? You don't have to do this, but the idea is, imagine that, we want to make sure we track that payment and tie it back to something, right? And maybe the bill's for $100, whatever, it was whatever the copay is or something like that. Okay, so we get that in there. I hit Start Secure Pay.
Please enter your credit card info, followed by a pound. Thank you. Your payment has been processed. We will connect you back with the agent.
Okay. So I kept that really generic. I don't want anybody to have to sit there while I, enter in expiration dates and, and the 3-digit codes and zip codes and everything else. I would definitely have put you to sleep by then. But keep it in the back of your mind. That if you're ever looking for more and more and more secure solutions for how to manage patient data, payment information, etc., we do it all. And at any point in time, just let Nabila and I know, and we're always happy to come and re-engage and show you what else we can do in that area. Okay, so I want to do the last thing, which is I need to wrap up this call. So far, my agent's taken in a call. Maybe we've scheduled an appointment, or we've answered some questions. Maybe we took a payment, right? We've handled the caller's needs, right? With all the tools that we have at our disposal, which by now your eyes are probably rolling into the back of your head and you're overwhelmed by everything Mike's telling you. But, regardless, we've handled everything that patient needed. Now we're going to end that call. And the last step in 5.9 as an agent to end that call is we set a disposition. So setting a disposition is some platforms, back in the day used to call them wrap-up codes or result codes and all that. Disposition is something that you create. Okay, in each of your teams, you can have totally different dispositions. The idea is it drives value for you as a supervisor to be able to report on this. So what was the outcome? Was it something generic like first call resolution? Did we collect a payment? Did we make, payment arrangements? What did we do? Because imagine being able to go ahead and run a report and see, well, in my group, what was the percentage of calls on this topic? How many times did somebody call in interested in something, but maybe not set an appointment, right? All those kinds of things that you may have questions on, right? Some of these may be even specifically driven to give you more insight on what agents need more training, right? Or help. Either way, you'll create the ones that make sense in your group. And the agent, this reports to you the information you want, and it hangs up the call. It's all in one, right? So I don't have to click 3 different things. All I have to do is go, yeah, We resolve the problem. And we're done. Call's over. And my agent's ready to take a new call. All right. So I want to pause. Nobody's interrupted me yet. So that means I either put everybody to sleep, or maybe you're just patiently waiting to ask some questions right now. So I want to pause for a second and see if you have any questions.
I have a few questions. This is Joe with Fit Technologies.
Please.
You answered my question about the disposition codes, but the unavailable codes in the top left corner, are those also customizable?
They absolutely are. Yep. These are just some ones that we just created in this environment. You can create as many as you want and ones that make sense to the org.
Perfect. I know you said you can click the record button, but can calls be automatically recorded? And if they can, what's the retention period on those?
Great questions. So the record button that I have added here is to meet some very specific certain state requirements. There's states that we have there where you can't automatically record, or in certain conditions, the agent has to ask and then they can start the recording and things like that. So I keep it on for when I'm talking to organizations in those, unique situations. Now, we absolutely do 100% or automatic or selectable recordings, so you have a lot of control there. You could say 5.9, what we want to do as a basic start in this group only, we want to do, let's say, 100% call recording, and we want to make sure it's encrypted and HIPAA compliant, and that we're just going to store those for no more than 30 days, right? You could pick that. That's sort of our default standard. From there, you can pick how long we want to keep the recordings. So we can store them as long as you want, or you even, when we don't, by the way, hold your data hostage at all. So you could say, you know what we want you to do? We want you to keep it for 30 days. And then at 30 days, we want you guys to automatically archive it to our own data warehouse, storage platform, whatever you got. You guys want us to dump it to Amazon S3, that's fantastic. We'll automatically move it out with all the metadata around it. So imagine that it's not just a call recording, it's who is the patient, what day did they call in, right? Who did they talk to? There's information around that, and we'll pass that all so you could continue to maintain it, or you just want us to delete it after 3 days. It's up to you.
It's perfect. Another quick question is that chat, are we able to disable that if we want?
Absolutely. So you will only see what is relevant to your organization. So if you're not taking voicemails, if you're not taking chat, if you're not taking social media, we'll turn all of that off and you'll have a voice only environment.
Okay, perfect. Because I don't know if that's something, but they use Teams, so I don't know if they want their agents to be speaking in Teams and then also speaking in 5.9, and there's just data, in both platforms. That my thought would just be keep it in one, but I just wanted to ask that.
No, absolutely. And this chat right here is sort of the internal chat. This chat over here is meant more for, I'll just bring this over as an example. Let's say you added additional communications medium. So the one on the left here is more for communicating with your patients. In the same vein, you can turn that off as well. So if you don't want to offer a chat box or tab or something like that off of your various websites that allow people to communicate with you over the web, we can turn this off, turn that off, and that won't even be available anymore.
Perfect. Yeah, I like the customer one personally. I think that's really neat. The last question I have, at least at this time, is that Secure Pay. So once the patient is in the Secure Pay, they put in their credit card info. Where does that go? And then can the agent still pull up that information in their customer record?
So so that is the piece that varies by organization, right? So much. In some organizations, they want us to put it into your system of record, and then your system of record goes ahead and processes the payments and does all that. Some organizations want us to pass it to their preferred payment provider directly. So we process the payment with their payment provider. And then when their payment provider gives us a success or a failure code or something like that it went through or didn't go through, we'll just go into your system of record and say, hey, successful payments, $100 on this date with this agent, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of choice there, and it really needs to be a lot of choice because every organization needs a unique flow in that aspect of how they want to manage it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to turn around and ask a question now then. I'm going to let you guys steer me for a little bit. Do you guys want to talk about options from the web, other communications mediums like email into the contact center, what it might look like if somebody chatted off the website and came into the contact center? Or are you really only focused about voice today? And maybe since we took a voice call, we go to supervisor, interfaces, dashboards, things like that.
Hi, this is Francine. How are you?
Hi, good.
I actually I'm really interested on that chatting.
Okay.
Would Five9 be able to text or send messages to patients?
We absolutely can. Yeah. So are you thinking like text messages to their mobile phones and stuff like that too?
Yeah. I'm like, especially now with COVID, right? So we actually call the patient to have them come into our waiting room for those in-office patients. So this would be a great opportunity, like if we could just text them saying, hey, come on in, it's your turn, your appointment, you're ready for your appointment. That would be a great.
Yeah. Mike, can't we just do the MMS outgoing, like appointment reminders?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things we can do, and I think what we should start with, I'm going to drag this out of the way, and I want to start kind of simple, but the short answer is yes, but I want to give you a little bit more detail. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag this window over here. Now, this is actually my cell phone. I can share my cell phone on my laptop. That was a pretty cool day when I figured out I could do this. And of course my screen died. There we go. Hey. All right, so here's my cell phone. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send an inbound text to start with. Okay. So imagine that you allow texting into your organization now. So I'm going to send an inbound text, and as long as my it's a demo environment, so I'm going to cross my fingers here where I think we're actually going to go in here. Sometimes I like to break things in between my demos. Here, let's try it this way. Recently, they told me I need to send in my zip code, so they make sure it goes to Mike's queue and not somebody else's queue. So I'm going to try that and see if that works. Either way, the intention is, there's maybe a very short demo today for the text messaging, is that we fully support text messaging. We support web chat. I can send these text messages in, pick them up as an agent, and then manage them in the same way that I could manage an inbound conversation like that and talk back and forth. I can also go ahead and communicate over or actually send an outbound one as well, right? And it may be just that it's just taking longer for them, the world of text messages. But let's see what happens here. There we go. I think it's coming in. Yep, there we go. Okay. And so now we have the ability, right, to chat back and forth. And that can be over chat, that can be over SMS, et cetera, to be able to communicate, right? Now, that's an inbound flow, right? That's you publish a number, somebody sends you a text message. You can go ahead and chat, see the history. You could go ahead and even do pre-built responses. So if there's some common instructional things like I need you to fill out this online patient form, I need you to do this, hey, this is how you manage payments on the web. You could pre-fill these out and then allow the agent to select these, send those out to manage that more rapid, right? Now in the same vein, oh yeah, my text messages are just super slow. But in the same vein as that, we also enable you to do outbound. So I could do an ad hoc outbound where as an agent, I could go ahead and I'm not on a call, let's say, right? I'm not on an inbound email or something like that. And I could go ahead at any point and I could go to compose SMS, type in, this is a very manual example, but I could go ahead and type in a phone number, write my text message out, right? And then send that out. Now that's a manual example for an outbound. We also do automated, where maybe you have a patient database, right, in Advanced MD, and you want to enable Advanced MD that on specific scenarios, maybe they have upcoming appointments within 24 hours, 48 hours, you have certain scenarios and you want it to automatically send an SMS. What we do is through our tying in with Advanced MD, you would define the scenarios and when you want these things to happen, and then we could automatically send out those text messages. So those are sort of 3 examples. There's I want text messages into my agents in the queue. I want my agents to be able to manually send outbound text messages. And then you want to have a little bit more automation where you want to be able to send those text messages outbound. Did that address your question?
Absolutely. That was great.
Hi, Mike. Can I ask 2 different questions?
Yeah, always.
So one is actually how you handle voicemail and transcription and prioritization of those voicemails based on like some ranking of urgency. And then the other one is I'd love to see what the chat experience looks like from the patient perspective on the website, if it's a mix of a blend of chat bot with live chat support.
Great questions. Okay, so let's start off with voicemail. So voicemail, you have 2 choices. We have basic voicemail, which is I just need to have an option, and maybe it's something you present while the person's on hold, or it's an after hours. They leave a voicemail and it dives into the queue. Okay, so it's just like a voice call would be. Now, second option is, to your point, you want something a little bit more advanced, and that would be I not only just want a voice recording that's dropped into the queue and that the agent listens to and then can get a simple button to call back. But what you want is the ability to have it converted to text, and then we'll make a decision based on that text. Yeah. And so we absolutely do that. It's essentially an add-on. It's like voicemail advanced. And what we do is we transcribe the voicemail, and then we use something that we call engagement workflow. And I'm always cautious because, it's like everything's got a product name or a buzzword. So let me slow down and explain what engagement workflow is. It's a technology that spans every part of Five9. And what it does is it allows us to look at any text. That could be from a chat session, could be from an email, that could be from a transcribed voicemail, doesn't matter. But the idea is that across anything that's coming in, I can use what's called engagement workflow to look at the text and then start making intelligent decisions about where I want to route it to. So in this case, it's a voicemail. But in somebody else's example, one of the other teams, they may say, yeah, but we take in emails. And if somebody says, you may have certain keywords and certain things that people mention that raise a red flag, right? Maybe it's more of on a mental health condition side where we're really worried based on certain words that they're using, that we're like, okay, we need to prioritize that this gets to somebody immediately. We raise the priority, whatever it is, right? So based on what we read, we will adjust the priority level of that. We can pick different skills we want to transfer to, etc. So we can use engagement workflow across any channel, inclusive of transcribed voicemails. So hopefully that addresses your question.
Great, thank you.
Now that was that the first, sorry, did I miss?
Yeah. No, that was my first question. The second one was if you could go from the patient side, what the chat looks like on the website and if it handles both chatbot and live chat in the same window.
Yes, it does. Okay,
Right.
So that is actually a great example. So I'm going to open this up, right? I just have this little tab here. I promise you guys I did not hack your website. I just added some options to discuss on my side. But I'll be really generic here. I'm just going to say hi, okay? And you're going to notice nothing is going to happen over here, but there is something talking to me. So this is a chatbot, and what we're using for a chatbot, Five9, we have a number of solutions that we can leverage for chatbot. Typically, what we do behind the scenes is we use Google Dialogflow, which, Google's hard to beat in the AI world for chatbots. It's probably the most powerful engine out there because after 25 years or whatever it's been of them collecting data on everybody and billions upon billions of searches a day, their engine is so intelligent. And so I can talk to it and ask questions and, say, I don't know if I don't really have a healthcare. Do I have a healthcare thing that I built here? Nah, I didn't. I think I have a support scenario, right? I could say like, hey, I'm having a problem with an item, like maybe the power button doesn't work, and say, yeah, great. I have the item in front of me, and it's like, hey, have you tried turning it on? I kind of made it cheeky, right? But no, I did not try turning it on. Have you tried pressing the button? Nope. Not very smart, and so I never tried pressing the button. Yes, it worked great, right? So the idea is I can go through and design an entire chatbot. And that's, by the way, a great other session about if you guys want to talk more about intelligence and AI and sessions and all that. But the idea is that the same experience here could start with a chatbot. And then at some point, either the chatbot or the person that's talking to the chatbot could ask for an escalation, say, yes, I really want to talk to a representative, and then have that escalated, right? But also pass all the communication that they've had with that chatbot so far, right? And I think that's really important. I think it's important to have that discussion because depending on what they were asking about, it brings so much context to the agent.
So,
now, yeah, go for it.
Clarify that. So when you have, it sounds like we could design these automated question flows based on our most common questions that we would get on the landing page.
Absolutely.
If the system can't identify through AI what the question actually is, does it automatically direct to the agent?
It's choices. So it's so flexible these days. The way Google Dialogflow works is there's a concept of what's called an intent. And really an intent is a word, sentence, a series of things that that person might ask, and that leads to a response, right? So it could be a variation like, can you tell me more about therapy services? But they could have asked about outpatient therapy, inpatient therapy. So do you want those to vary or do you want them to be the same? And we start off with a generic answer. And then they say, I'd like to learn more. Can you tell me more about outpatient therapy services? And then we have a different answer that narrows in more to their specific question there. And maybe they say, maybe that's it. And then at that point, the bot just asks, was that enough? Do you want more help? Would you like to talk to an agent? So you get to pick how you want that experience to be and then give them choices.
Great. I assume I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kristen.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, could you assume that it then also could redirect to different types of teams?
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole idea.
What I was going to ask.
Maybe based on that. No, and that's a great question, guys. So the idea, though, is in that situation is you can start making decisions that based on where they've narrowed in at, that path is going to lead them to a different team in the organizations. So if they're starting to ask about XYZ, we can carry that with that chat session and go, okay, so when we want to route to this team. So there's an enormous amount of power that you can exercise there with that. And one thing I want to pass across to, do you guys remember when I called in and I'd said about the whole outpatient therapy thing and it routed me to the call over voice? Behind the scenes, that's actually using Google Dialogflow. Why that's important is now imagine that you're going to make an investment, let's say, a year from now, and you go, I want chatbot, okay? Because not everybody wants to do everything at once, right? So maybe day one, you guys get your teams in the contact center on voice. And then step two, you want to roll in chat and chatbots. Great. So now you've put an investment in to having all of these, what Google calls intents, right? Those questions, those answers, and those flows, and where do we route it to, and all of that, right? But the thing is, once it's built, we can present that to voice too, because we use the same engine behind the scenes. So now imagine somebody calls in and they want to have a virtual agent be able to talk to them and go through the same process. You don't have to do that, but imagine that no matter how they get to you, text message, chat on the web, voice, that there's options for them. And a lot of our customers are now, they're doing scheduled appointments that way. If somebody calls in at, 11 o'clock at night and you really don't want to staff that late, in certain teams that you have, they can do that regardless of which channel they're using to communicate with you. So to me, it's a one-time investment that not only modernizes you and keeps up pace with how people want to communicate with you, right? Because that's going to be a constant adaptation for every organization now. I was talking to a company yesterday that's global, and they were telling us that they have 13 instant messaging platforms that they work with because they totally vary. Like in Japan, they use Line and they use all these different ones than we use here, like ones I've never even heard of, right? So the thing is, it's a constant evolving thing, right? And then being able to use one core that manages that from an automation perspective through to the agent experience, I think is important. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Silly question, is there any UI customization on the chat?
All of it is completely customizable. I'm horrible with web design. Please do not hold me accountable for the color choices and everything that I did. Basically, we provide like a basic toolkit, and we can just enable these really easily. But in general, what usually most organizations want is they get like their web team with our implementation team. They come up with something that looks very it has the right look and feel, and then everything. And what we provide is we provide all the code that makes it work behind the scenes if you don't want like our generic tab look. So absolutely, it's going to feel and embed into your site like how you want it. Question. Do you guys have like a patient portal or forms that you make people fill out and things like that? Like on the web?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys use co-browse today where an agent can see the person's tab that they have open on their desktop and help them walk through a form? So if they're having issues or whatever, they can actually give them visual guidance like, oh, what I need you to do is X, Y, Z. Or is that even useful? It kind of varies. So I thought I'd ask before I just show. Because if it's not useful, I won't.
Not something we have today. I don't know, Francine, thoughts on usefulness?
Yeah, it would be useful. I know my staff is on the phone with patients and they're walking them through it blindly. They're opening it up and just, trying to mimic what they're seeing. So I'd love to see that because that would be useful because I know every day my staff is doing that with patients.
Let me see. I'm going to see if I can get a chat session in here real quick because I think this will be helpful. Yeah, talk to an agent. Oops, I'm a bad agent. I never dispositioned my call, so it won't send me a new chat. There we go. Let's get that chat to come in here.
Mike, I'm just, I know that this was on the agenda at the beginning, so I'm sure you're planning to get there, but I'm just wanting to be aware of the time. I want to make sure we get to reporting, dashboard, analytics, so people can see stats
That's
about the calls
great point. And
everything.
we've got about, yeah, no, it's a great point. I know we've got about 25 minutes left. Let me do this real quick. I can get through co-browse in about 3 minutes and I'll go straight to supervision.
How can I help you today?
Okay.
I just want to talk to an agent, please.
Great. Let me get you to a customer service representative to help you with that.
So, real brief demo. I want you to imagine that I got my agent here on the left. And the screen on the right is your patient, okay? And whatever they're doing doesn't really matter. Maybe they're on a form or whatever it is. At any point in time, your agent could say, hey, you know what? It sounds like you're having some trouble with this form or whatever it is you need to do or stuff you have to fill out. I'd love to help you. Do you mind if I could see what it is that you're doing right now in your browser? I could probably give you some, pretty fast guidance with that. The person says, great, I'd be happy to give you access, whatever. And so the agent goes ahead and clicks a button. Okay. I call this a connector. And at this point, your agent knows to say, hey, on our website, right here in the bottom left, there's these two boxes with an arrow. Can you click on that? Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to give me that code. Well, that code is 293813227. And the agent goes, great. One moment. In this case, they just have to type in their name, but we can bypass that. And now, in short order, should be short order. What is going on today? I'm just having bad luck today. Yeah, great. Okay, well, what's supposed to happen, gotta love demo environments, is you see the other person's screen, right? So the intention is the agent can go ahead and highlight areas, control their screen if you want to. It's also used for secure document transport, right? So now imagine that in your case, you're able to actually go ahead and pass secure documents back and forth, help them identify what they need to do. Apparently I'm just having bad luck today. That makes for a bad demo, so I apologize, guys, but everything doesn't always work great for me. But that's essentially the intention with co-browsing, is that we can do that support for the patient that's on the line and give them that guidance.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
It's really informative. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so with the last 20 minutes that we've got, I want to talk about supervision. So I already had it open in the background. I'll save a quick second so I don't have to log in as a supervisor too. But let's talk about what this is. So this is Supervisor Desktop. And what Supervisor Desktop is it is your live view into the contact center. So this gives you all of that deep visibility into seeing what's going on with my team or teams, right? If you manage multiple teams, you've got multiple queues, you have anywhere from 1 to 1,000 agents, doesn't matter. Now, Supervisor Desktop is all about widgets, okay? So when you start with Supervisor Desktop, you start off with basically a blank slate. Although we'll help you guys build, your first couple, but you'll probably at one point say, you know what, I want to create something that makes sense to me, right? It shows me the relevant data that I care about. So you'll have the ability to add widgets across a couple of different types. This would be a data table. These over here are single statistic widgets, like how many agents do I have logged in, or what's my abandonment rate, right? How many people are hanging up? And then you'll click on that, and then you'll add a widget. Now I'm going to open up an existing one, like I'll open up the average handle time, like what's the average amount of time it's taking each of our agents, right, to manage a call across the queue. And I can do things like change the size of my widget, right? I can pick the category of statistics. Is it inbound? Are we doing automated outbound and follow-up calls? Is it more about agent state? Like, are they on a call right now? Or maybe it's inbound statistics. And inbound statistics, there's a wealth of them, right? I mean, across all the channels, voice, calls, emails, chats, all that. But you'll be able to, pick things like handle time or, wait time, etc. And then you pick the one that's relevant. And this is a single statistic, right? If it was one of the data tables, you'll pick all of the columns that you want to have show. And then I can save that. At that point, I've got my widget, right? I've got all of these things that I care to see. So at the top here, I created some of the ones I'm most worried about, like how many active agents do I have? Like if it's a smaller scale and I only have a few people in it, maybe a couple of them called in sick today. And then now I'm kind of facing an issue. Like my one agent that's left here is kind of waiting to go on lunch. So what do I do about that? Well, I know I've got cross-trained agents. So what if I went to, Jason here and said, hey, Jason, do you mind covering while John over here wants to go ahead and go to lunch? So if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my actions section and I'm going to edit skills. What I'm going to do here, Jason, I'm going to go ahead and add you to MEQ. So that'll allow John to go on lunch. You can go ahead and cover the calls until he gets back. And I really appreciate it. Right. So identify something that's going on and then be able to solve it right here. All right, to me, that's the life of a supervisor, right? First, you need the statistics. You need all those metrics, KPIs, et cetera, right? You need those alerts and everything that lets you clue into what's going on. But the second part of it is then once I identify something is going on, where do I go? So from adjusting skill levels, adding people to skills, even performing quality monitoring, right? So Pete here is on a call. I can go ahead and listen to the call live with Pete, see what's happening, listen. If you want to do screen recording, we can record the calls and their desktop so you can see what they're doing alongside those call recordings. But in the same way we do that you can access it later, right, for management purposes, you can also do it all live. So I can listen to this live call that Pete's on, and then also see Pete's screen to see what he's up to right now. I can chat with Pete to give him guidance, whisper in Pete's ear, and I can even go ahead and barge in on that call. I don't really like barge from like the old school perspective where people said, well, you're going to dive in and like rescue the call. That's really disruptive to me, to the caller alone, let alone the agent. I see this more of an escalation, right? So Pete's having a challenging time in this call, right? Maybe he doesn't know how to do something in the system because he's a newer agent and doesn't know how to put something in the system properly, or, something else. But what I think is helpful in this case is that Pete could go, hey, I need help. Can you help me? And maybe you whisper in their ear to give them guidance how to accomplish a task. Or maybe they're like, hey, I'd like to escalate to the supervisor. Do you mind if I bring my supervisor on the line? And you hit barge. So it really creates a conference call. Moreover, as you guys start to potentially introduce chat, and other kinds of interactions more than just voice, the next thing that follows up is, hey, I don't just want to listen to the calls. I want to be able to get a deep dive into what's actually happening on those, those interactions. What are you chatting about live? So an example of that is if I now want to dive in deep to my agents, I could see, hey, Paul here is on both a voice and a chat session at the same time. So I'm going to click on Paul. He might be a good example. And I can see that he's on a chat. So I'm going to click on that chat and see what they're live talking about. Do that with emails. See if anybody's on an email right now. Chris is. Right. So I can go ahead and click on the email that he's on, see what he's writing right now to our patient. So the idea is that I get a visibility into all the things that are happening, right? I can see the dynamic changes, see that all live, and really tailor the view, though, to each individual group. And so this is just one view. I called it my contact center because, I'm kind of boring that way. But I can create all kinds of them, right? I can create different ones that have different, tailored focuses for the group. Now, all of this is a very live and an interactive view. This would be for you, the supervisor, that wants to be able to manage your center no matter where your agents are, no matter where you are. We also have this available as an iPad app, right? Now, the flip side of that is I want something historical, right? I want to be able to get to what happened over the past week or what happened over the past month. Well, that's where I would go to reports. Now, a good way to kind of think about our reports is that we give you a whole bunch of out-of-the-box reports, right? You're going to have reports that tell you what options did they press to get to you. You're going to have a whole bunch of service level and deep ACD reports and all these different categories, right? But I'm going to run a call log report, and there's a reason why, because I think it'll make my next point pretty well, is that at the end of the day, regardless of what report you run, there's going to be a wealth of information that you're presented with, but there's always going to be something that you may have been accustomed to previously, and Five9's not showing me this column, or, oh my gosh, they're showing me too much stuff, like a report that has like 40 different queues in it, right? That's probably kind of excessive. And then a report that has like 40 columns in it, right? I mean, to me, that's kind of an excessive column, excessive report. Like if you gave me a report with 500 pages and like 40 columns, I've been asked for this before because I've been doing this for a long time. They're like, I need this report. I'm like, does anybody look at this? Like, how are you going to go through 400 pages? Like, I feel like you're just kind of trying to check a box, but nobody has that kind of time. So at the end of the day, you're presented with the information, but we got to make it useful, right? We got to make it that you can get to the information within hopefully a minute or two, because otherwise you're not going to have enough time in your week to solve whatever problem you're trying to find, right? So at the end of the day, with all this stuff, like talk time and how long did my agent park the call for, and did the call get transferred, and then, oh, look, I can click a link for the recording, and boy, it's a lot. So what I want to do is I want to take all that and I want to make it manageable. So to me, the most important part of reporting is great. Let me at least check the boxes. Five9 have a whole bunch of reports and IVRs and call center reports. Yes. Okay. But the next thing is day 2 after your report training, you need the ability to switch this report to a different type of report. Or maybe you need the ability to hone in on the information that you want. And most of the time, this right here is a custom report, and you have to go pay a report writer X amounts with, and it's going to take you 3 months till they give you the report back, and it's just cumbersome. And so what Five9 did is we wanted to make it a lot easier for organizations to be able to get the data that they want. So if I don't care how much time they spent in the IVR before they got to my call center, and how long it rang before it got to the agent, and how long we parked that call for, and all those kinds of things, I can go ahead and start making adjustments and start unchecking the things that I don't care about, right? I could add the notes field though, because I want to see what notes the agent left along with the call. I can hit next. Maybe I want to organize the report differently, like order it differently. Maybe order it by phone number versus what time it came in on. I want to do math, like maybe total up the talk time. Or maybe give me a total count of how many times that call was transferred. Because nobody wants to see a call that was transferred 5 times till it finally got to the right group, right? There's an opportunity. Maybe the prompts don't make sense when people call in, and so they're hitting the wrong option way too many times. And this could be an indicator if you're frequently seeing a ton of transfers out of one team. Grouping, like I want to group all the calls. Like I want to have a list of all calls coming into the company, but I want them grouped by the queue. And then finally, maybe filter it how far back I want to go in time. Like a week. Which agents do I want to filter on? Please only show me these 3 queues and only inbound calls, right? So I can start to get really narrow into the data. And at the end of it, I can hit run report. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 4 seconds to run that custom report. It's not bad, right? Remove a bunch of columns. It's a little simpler now. I added that notes column, right? So you see, I mean, I really did this live. So we want to make sure that it's easy to do those kinds of adjustments, right? Because I've made some adjustments, that one chart that didn't make sense to it anymore, and that's fine because I removed an important field that it was relying on. So I'll just remove that chart, just as easy to adjust. And then now that I've got all this really important information, one, I could save it as a custom report, drop it into folders to share with other supervisors, or keep it all to myself, right? I could go ahead and export this report to different formats like PDF, Excel, and I can even go ahead and have it automatically scheduled to run, right? Which I like, because once you find the kinds of things you like, you're probably not running reports every single day. I mean, you're probably too busy managing your team too, but the idea is you could have it run even at the end of the week, maybe Friday at 3 o'clock. I'd love to see kind of where we were at for call volume. What was our service level at? Did we hit our goal that we answered every call within 30 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever it is, whatever your individual goals are for your team. And so I could have that all sent directly to my inbox. And then I could quickly thumb through those reports and know where we're at. Maybe I take them to an operations meeting that maybe you guys have, right? Where you kind of all get together and, for 15 minutes a week and talk about what you guys can do differently to improve service. But this is kind of like, this would be the historical side of things with Five9. And we do a lot more depth. We have business analytics dashboards that can tie together, revenue and bookings and how many appointments were set. And we do gamification, so you can run games and give agents kudos for how great their post-call survey scores they're getting. I mean, we do an incredible amount of depth, but you can see after almost 90 minutes now, some of you are probably feeling overwhelmed. Some of you are probably just tired of hearing me talk, but I would never want to get into talking about all those extra things in the same call, because it's just too much. And a lot of times, not everything's important day one. You want time, right? It's moving to something like Five9 is going to be probably an enormous shift already. Not that it's a bad thing, but we're probably going to introduce a lot more capabilities than what you have today already. But you don't want to introduce everything under the sun in the same period. So a lot of times we say, here, this is what we can do. And then you pick what you want to start with. And then, hey, every 6 months, 12 months, whatever makes sense, as your business evolves, we can introduce new things that make sense. That's another reason I leave a lot of stuff off in the beginning. But so far we've gone through voice, chat, SMS.
Yeah, it was a lot. I know.
Right?
We have 7 minutes, and I can only imagine the questions that you folks have.
What I
so
was thinking is let's turn it over to you guys. Ask what questions you have, please.
I got a couple more questions. This is Joe with Fit Technologies. For outbound caller ID, are we able to customize that per user? And the reason I bring that up is because certain clinicians, they use their personal DID. That way the patient can call them back directly. Certain people have the main line at the site that they're at. That way they can call the main line back for the location that they're at, or is that static for all agents?
No, it's completely configurable. You could have some staff that have a personal number and they want to push that out and they want to be able to get direct personal calls back to them and have their own voicemail and all that. And then you can have teams that when they make a call, it presents a very particular number. And when that's called, it can either go to a menu or back directly to that queue that the team has. So you'll have choices there.
Okay. And then just one final question is, while the patient's waiting on hold, are we able to play more than one comfort message, and are they able to escape the queue and like go to a voicemail or?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's completely up to your design. I mean, you could start off by just having one, generic hold message, or you could say you could provide estimated wait time. You could, give them interactive prompts and things they want to do while they're on hold. Or a really common option is maybe after 30 or 60 seconds, give them a prompt that says, hey, if you don't want to continue to hold, you could press 1, leave us your number, and we'll call you back, or press 2 to leave a voicemail. If it isn't urgent, we'll call you back as well. So, I mean, total configuration.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be really important, because I know I spoke to Francine about that, and I think that's going to be really important for their patients. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I have a question or a concern. Carmel Q, which is we get a large volume of phone calls. How would it handle receiving 50 to 100 calls at the same time? How does that look? Because that's the biggest issue that we're having. Our Carmel Q has such a high volume of phone calls.
That's a great question. So first, I'm going to address the larger, maybe an elephant in the room. We'll see. But we have customers. For example, we have an extremely large healthcare organization that we have 5,000, just slightly over 5,000 concurrent agents logged in at a time. Okay, and then we have mom and pop shops that have 5 agents with Five9. Okay. So we're a large cloud organization with an enormous volume that we handle, right? Billions upon billions of minutes. So we can handle your volume. The second part of that, though, is really about how you want to architect it. And what I mean by that is by default, we give you 3 lines for every agent. So I want you to imagine you have an agent sitting there, and we've given them a total of 3 lines. Now that they're not really assigned to that agent, it's just a starting point where we say, let's say you had a total of 500 agents with Five9. We're going to give you 1,500 ports, lines, whatever you want to call it. And that's the total volume that you could have coming into our organization. You say Five9, that's not enough. Cool. Do you want 2,000? Do you want 3,000? What do you want? And so that's how many incoming or outgoing combination of interactions that you can have coming in. Now, let's say in that scenario, you've got 100 agents, you have 300 calls on hold. What do you want to have? The next step, I think, is really about what do you want to have happen as those calls come in? Right now, maybe they just go to hold music, but maybe you realize that because of the growth, and maybe you're not able to train agents and hire agents fast enough, you need some intermediary solutions to curb some of that. So maybe you offer some self-service prompts, right? Maybe it's not even true self-service where you're just giving them some prompts on the phone to address common questions that they have. And maybe a lot of them start to hang up. 5% of them hang up because they got their question answered while they were on hold. The next step is maybe self-service on the web, and maybe you introduce chat, because most agents can handle 2 to 3 chat sessions at the same time, but you can only handle 1 voice call at the same time. So you drive other channels to curb some of that. Then you introduce self-service, right? So we can absolutely handle your volume. The question, though, is always going to be is what else makes sense to balance that when you literally get more calls than you even have the staff to handle. And that's where the creative juices start to flow. And we use what we have, and you use your experience with what you do with your callers and your patients and all that, and what makes the most sense to apply for addressing that problem.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Francine, I just want to comment quickly on that particular question, and this is more of an FYI. When I spoke with Anne, whenever it was, a week and a half or so ago, and you guys were having, some severe challenges, which aren't new, I know. That question that you just asked is actually why I had a call with Mike and Nabila on this past Friday before I even wanted them to put this solution in front of you guys. I did not want to present any sort of solution that couldn't handle your call volume. So I sort of dove deeper, pushing Mike on specific questions around that. Because that was definitely my #1 priority as well. I don't want to put a solution out there that you guys are struggling if you have too many calls with. And it does feel like, there is the ability to continue to ramp and tweak and add. And I think at this point, we sort of don't know what we don't know, right? Because we don't have the visibility of any sort of reporting to know exactly how many, if you add things like chat and text, how many calls you need to accommodate at the same time, how many calls are being abandoned or not getting through, or you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
This system gives you the ability to have that visibility to what's happening, and then kind of incrementally make changes to accommodate those things if we need to.
Agreed. And by the way, some of those changes can be rapid too. I mean, we've got customers where they didn't expect what was going to happen. They get a massive ramp, like they bring on a provider and they didn't think that the provider was going to start funneling everything over to them as fast as they did. And all of a sudden they're getting 100 concurrent calls, right? From a huge network. Like, oh my gosh, we just got a deal with Blue Cross Blue Shield across 17 states. And now they're hammering me in and we're getting hit with 100 concurrent calls a second. So the thing is, Five9 rapidly can engage it. You can call us an emergency situation. Within hours, we could ramp up the lines that you have available, give you 100+ lines. And that's unheard of in the industry, right? Usually that takes weeks with your telephone provider. But with us, within hours, we could go ahead and ramp you up, add your lines. The only challenge, though, with that is while we can address all of your concerns there, the fallback always to that, or the follow-up to always that is, yeah, but now you don't have the agents to deal with that, right? Because now you may have had, you may have 300 calls, but if you only have 30 agents in your team, everyone's getting 90-minute on holds times, right? And you can't have that either. So that's where the follow-up to that, and that's where you need the ability to have choices and to make adjustments in the flows and the processes. So maybe you go, we can't handle all these live. I mean, what we'll do is we'll take voicemails and we'll take callback requests, because people aren't going to hold for 90 minutes, but if they hear,